Hello and welcome back everyone. Today I have a really special project to share with you. So first of all, I want to say that this painting was really exciting to get started on, but also incredibly intimidating to start on, because I knew I'd want to capture as many details as I possibly could in this amazing landscape. So as you could see at the beginning of this video, I started with a grid and then laid on a pretty detailed sketch over that. And then I started painting what was most distant in the image, which was the sky and the distant mountains in the background. And I have to say, when you're starting a project this big and intimidating, it can be really helpful to have a sort of tried and true system that you know works and you can rely on. So as you can see, I was working section by section and pre-mixing all my colors so that I had all the proper colors in that section, so I could really pay attention to highlights and shadows and midtones and all the fine details. And I should say as well that I think working in sections really helped my mental state when approaching this piece, because I didn't feel too intimidated. I could work on a section and feel accomplished with finishing that section for the day, and not really pay attention to where I was in the whole painting. And on a technical note, you'll see as I start to work on things that are closer to the viewer as opposed to distant, there'll be a lot more value range in terms of darks and lights. You'll see some darker shadows and more intense highlights. And at this point, it was really exciting for me to see a huge section of this painting that was mostly finished, but also still intimidating, knowing that there were so many details left and there was snow, and not to mention the figure. So I think it's safe to say that most of all, this painting really tested my patience, because I knew I was capable of rendering all the details and getting all the colors right. It was just a matter of putting the time in and exerting the effort. So as you'll start to see this section develop, you'll see it was pretty difficult to get all the colors and the details right. There were a lot of crevices and lines and shapes that were in this section that really took a lot of time and effort. And I did take a lot of time to pre-mix my colors properly so I could match the color and vibrancy that I saw in this image. And in this section specifically, it was incredibly helpful to have the sketch to look back on, because there were so many intricate contours and shapes and edges to observe and get right. And as you see this cliff face develop more and more, you can see how important the shadows are specifically to portraying depth and texture to really bring this section to life. And I think a huge takeaway that I gained from this piece was the actual value of patience and going through sections slowly and deliberately and really being observant to what you're seeing. Because every day I'd be able to step back from what I was working on and feel a sense of accomplishment from the area that I was working on, and seeing how it contributed to the piece as a whole. And as you're seeing in this section here, it was really interesting to see how even areas that were mostly in shadow had a lot of value to them, and there were even, highlights within shadows that you could see, and observing those and rendering those really helped create depth and detail. And something that you won't see in this video was I went over a lot of sections with some glazing in order to add some atmosphere to the things that were in the distance and adjust their colors, because there were a lot more purples and blues in the background. And as I'm adding the snow right now, I know what you're thinking. It looks a lot too saturated and too blue, but that was the actual color of the snow. And as you see me adding more values and more snow for context, you can see that it's starting to look a little bit better. And the snow overall really helped as a sort of tool to show contours in the rock and show even more depth with the value and the color that it had and the shapes that it created as it went around rocks. And at this point I couldn't quite wait anymore. I needed a break from the snow, so I started to block in the figure as I was nervous and excited. And again, something you won't see in this video was I actually did several layers on top of this layer you're seeing here, just because I wanted to get the colors and values correct so that you sort of understood the silhouetted nature of the figure. And a sort of fun detail about this figure was that originally the dress itself was a different color, but I actually changed the color in Photoshop to match the colors of the cliff edges a little bit more, so that she made a little bit more sense in the context. And I think the colors really matched the cliff edge nicely. And a huge part of making this figure make sense in this landscape was the shadow that was underneath the dress, and sort of contouring its way around the hill and other rocks. So yeah, after revisiting certain areas and adding some glazes, this piece was done. It took approximately 185 hours over the course of about 37 days, and I'm really proud of the result. And I do have to say that this piece was definitely a journey with lots of ups and downs, and I think that's what makes the result so much more special for me, and hopefully for you. With all my Terra human paintings, I've really loved the idea of playing with the scale of humans in paintings, and I think this piece specifically is the most simple iteration of that, just showing a very large-scale figure exploring a landscape and fully embracing the moment. And as of the time of recording this video, this piece is still available for purchase directly from me at my website, which is austinhowlett.com. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I hope you learned a thing or two. I definitely learned a lot while creating this painting. And yeah, I hope you enjoy any other videos on my YouTube channel or Instagram.